Have you ever stopped to think about just how much we as humans crave connection?
Oh, absolutely. It's like this deep-seated need to feel like we're part of something, to know we belong.
Exactly. And motivational psychologists have been really digging into this. Folks like Baumeister and Leary, they talk about this drive to belong as a fundamental human motivation.
Right, and it makes total sense. I mean, think about it. This need to belong, it really shapes our thoughts, our feelings, and even our behaviors. It's pretty powerful stuff.
It really is. So, with that in mind, today we're diving deep into a fascinating review article from Educational Psychology Review.
Do I fit in? Race, ethnicity, and feelings of belonging in school. That's one.
That's it. And our mission today is to understand just how the racial and ethnic makeup of schools, the whole environment, really, influences these crucial feelings of belonging. It's not enough to simply say belonging is important. We need to ask belonging for whom and in what context.
Absolutely, because context is everything, especially in a school setting.
Right. Now, the authors of this article, they've done a ton of research on this topic, both studies that look at things at one point in time and those that follow students over longer periods.
It's impressive, really, the breadth of their work.
It is. And they've used all of this to investigate how what they call racial ethnic context variables actually impact both a student's sense of belonging and their academic success. So things like how many other students in the school share your racial or ethnic background.
Right, the size of your group, so to speak.
Exactly. And also how well represented you feel in your classes, particularly in those key subjects like STEM.
And they argue that racial and ethnic diversity is not this fixed, static thing. It's dynamic and constantly evolving.
Which makes you think about all the different ways it could be influencing students that we might not even realize.
Okay, so let's start with that foundation. We know that belonging is important, but what does the research actually say about the link between a sense of belonging in school and positive outcomes for students? Well, there's a growing body of research, and it pretty convincingly demonstrates that feeling a sense of belonging in school is linked to all kinds of positive outcomes for students. And we're not just talking academics here.
Right, it goes way beyond that.
It does. We're talking about social well-being, emotional well-being, even things like resilience. When students feel like they truly belong, they're more likely to engage in class, to participate, to take risks. They're more motivated to learn and to persevere when things get tough.
So it's really this holistic benefit. Belonging, it underpins so much of the student experience.
I'd say so, yeah. It really does create a foundation for success across the board.
And this is where the article we're looking at today gets really interesting because it goes beyond just saying belonging is good and really zooms in on the crucial role that race and ethnicity play in this need for belonging. And they get specific about how the actual racial and ethnic makeup of a school, of the classrooms, can influence that individual student's experience.
Right. It's like you walk into a school and it has a certain vibe, a certain feel. And part of that feel comes from who's there, who you see around you. Like, are there other people who look like you, who come from a similar background? Are those people in your classes, in your clubs, in your activities? It all feeds into that sense of belonging.
So it's not just about being physically present in the school building. It's about feeling seen, feeling represented in the various spaces and activities within that school.
Exactly. And that's where those racial ethnic context variables we talked about come into play.
Okay, so let's break down some of those variables. First up, the size of your racial ethnic group within the school. How many other students share your background? Now, it seems pretty intuitive that seeing more people who look like you, who come from a similar culture, might make you feel more comfortable, like you're not the only one. But the research suggests there's actually a bit more nuance to it than that.
There is.
Yeah.
It's not always a straightforward equation like more representation equals more belonging for everyone. The research shows that for students who are part of the numerical minority in a school, seeing a larger number of students from their same racial or ethnic background can definitely contribute to a stronger sense of belonging. It can provide a support network, reduce feelings of isolation, and maybe even act as a shield against discrimination or bias.
So it's like, if you're one of only a handful of students from a particular background, seeing more people who share your identity can be incredibly validating.
Exactly. It can make you feel seen and understood in a way that might not be possible if you were the only one or one of just a few. But then things can shift a bit when we look at students who are part of the majority group in a school.
So for them, just having a large number of students from their own group doesn't necessarily guarantee that strong sense of belonging.
Right. For those students, the research suggests that the focus might shift more towards intergroup relations. Like, how well do different racial and ethnic groups within the school get along? How inclusive is the overall school climate? It's less about individual representation and more about the overall health of the school community.
That makes sense. If your group is already the majority, your feeling of belonging might depend more on how well everyone in the school interacts, regardless of their background.
Yeah, it's more about the collective sense of belonging in that case.
Yeah. Now, another layer of complexity here is that this whole dynamic can change quite a bit during those major school transitions, like moving from elementary to middle school or middle school to high school.
Oh, absolutely. Those transitions can be huge, and not just academically. I mean, the whole social landscape can change. You're meeting new people, navigating new social norms, and often the racial and ethnic makeup of the school changes too.
Right. So a student who felt a strong sense of belonging in their diverse elementary school might suddenly feel very different when they go to a middle school where there are fewer students who share their background.
Exactly. Or the opposite could happen too. Maybe a student comes from a less diverse elementary school and then goes to a much more diverse high school. That can be a real adjustment as well. So it's not just about the numbers at a single point in time. It's about how those numbers change and how those changes are experienced by individual students.
Okay, so we've talked about the size of your racial ethnic group within the school as a whole, but the article also digs into this really interesting aspect of perceived representation in specific courses, especially in STEM subjects. And they hone in particularly on ninth grade math. Why that specific focus?
Well, there are a couple of reasons why they highlight STEM and ninth grade math in particular. First of all, STEM fields, as we all know, have historically struggled with diversity. And there's a lot of research that shows that feeling like you belong in STEM, like you can see yourself succeeding in those fields, is a huge predictor of whether students actually pursue STEM careers down the line.
So it's not just about feeling comfortable in the school in general. It's about feeling like you belong in those specific academic spaces that might lead to future opportunities.
Exactly. And that's especially true for ninth grade math, which is often algebra-aligned. This class is kind of a gatekeeper course in a lot of ways.
Right. It can determine which math classes you take later on, which can then influence your options for college majors and even career paths.
Precisely. So success or struggles in ninth grade math can have this ripple effect that impacts a student's entire academic journey. And the authors argue that seeing other students who share your racial or ethnic background succeeding in ninth grade math, seeing yourself represented in that space, can send a really powerful message about your own potential to succeed.
It's like, hey, if they can do it, maybe I can too.
Exactly. And that's the kind of thinking that can make a huge difference in a student's motivation and their academic choices.
Okay, now this next point is something that I think a lot of people don't really consider. The article distinguishes between racial and ethnic representation at the school level versus representation within specific courses. And it makes you realize that you could have a school that appears very diverse overall, but the actual experience within individual classrooms might be quite different.
Oh, yeah, that's a really important distinction. It's easy to look at the overall demographics of a school and say, oh, this is a diverse school. But if you dig deeper, you might find that students are being sorted into different classes or academic tracks in ways that create very different experiences of diversity at the classroom level.
So you could have a student who interacts with a diverse group of peers in the cafeteria or at after-school activities, but then they go to their math or science class, and it's predominantly students from one racial or ethnic background.
Right, and that can create a real sense of dissonance for students. Like, wait, I thought this was a diverse school. Why am I the only one who looks like me in this class?
And it's not just about feeling comfortable or uncomfortable, right? The research suggests that these differences between school-level diversity and course-level diversity can actually have a distinct impact on both a student's sense of belonging and their academic achievement.
It's true. I mean, think about it. If you consistently find yourself in classes where you're the only one, or one of just a few students who share your background, it can be really hard to shake that feeling of being an outsider. And that can impact your willingness to participate in class, to ask questions, to really engage with the material.
And that feeling of isolation can be especially pronounced in those subjects that are often seen as gatekeepers to future opportunities, like those STEM courses we were just talking about.
Exactly. So even if a school appears diverse overall, if the actual learning environments within classrooms feel segregated, then the potential benefits of that diversity might not be fully realized for individual students.
That's a powerful insight. It reminds us that we need to look beyond the broad statistics and pay attention to the more nuanced experiences that students are having within those specific classroom settings. Absolutely. The classroom is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. That's where students are spending most of their time. That's where they're forming their sense of self as learners. And that's where these dynamics of race and ethnicity can play out in really subtle but significant ways.
And this connects really well to the article's argument for viewing racial and ethnic diversity as a fluid and dynamic construct. It's not just this static characteristic of a school, it's something that's constantly changing and evolving, and those changes can have real and ongoing consequences for students.
It's like the racial and ethnic makeup of a school, of a classroom, it's not set in stone. It can change from year to year, even from class to class.
And students notice those changes, right? They
Yeah.
pick up on those subtle shifts in the environment around them.
Absolutely. And those shifts, they can influence a student's sense of belonging, their motivation to learn, and ultimately their academic performance. For example, imagine a student who goes from a very diverse middle school to a high school where their racial or ethnic group is less represented. That change can be really jarring.
And it's not just about the numbers themselves. It's about how those changes in representation affect the student's experience of the school environment.
Exactly. It's about how those changes make them feel, how they interpret those changes in relation to their own sense of self and their place in the school community.
It's a great point. Diversity isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It's about lived experiences.
It really is, and it's something that we need to be much more mindful of in how we design and manage schools.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing that the authors highlight. It's the broader research that really emphasizes just how fundamental this need to belong is. And they tie it back to work in motivational psychology, showing that this desire to belong isn't just some fluffy feel-good thing. It's a core driver of human behavior.
Yeah, it goes way deeper than we often give it credit for. Motivational psychologists have been studying this need to belong for decades, and their research shows that it influences how we see ourselves, how we interpret social cues, and how we act in social situations. It's basically wired into our brains.
So it's not surprising that this need to belong would be so crucial in the school environment, which is, at its core, a social setting.
Exactly. School is where students are learning not just academic content, but also how to navigate social relationships, how to fit in, how to find their place in the world. And if that fundamental need to belong isn't being met, it can really undermine their entire experience.
That's a great point. It's not just about academics. It's about feeling connected, feeling accepted, feeling like you're part of something larger than yourself.
Absolutely. And that's true for all students, regardless of their background.
So bringing it back to you, our listeners, what are the key takeaways here? What are those aha moments that can help us better understand the experiences of students from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds? Like, we've talked about how for students who are part of the numerical minority in a school, seeing a larger number of students from their same group can really boost that sense of belonging. But could it ever go the other way? Could a large majority group ever experience a negative impact on their sense of belonging just because of their size? Like, if intergroup relations in the school are poor, could even students in the majority feel less connected, less like they belong?
That's a really interesting question. And it's something that the research doesn't always address directly. But I think it's definitely plausible that in environments where there's a lot of tension or conflict between different racial or ethnic groups, even students who are part of the numerical majority might feel a diminished sense of belonging. It wouldn't necessarily be because they don't see enough people who look like them. It would be more about the overall climate of the school, the lack of a sense of community, and the negative impact that that has on everyone, regardless of their background. It highlights the fact that belonging isn't just about individual representation, it's about the quality of relationships between groups and the overall feeling of inclusion and respect within the school community.
I think that's a crucial point. Belonging isn't just about me, it's about us. It's about building a community where everyone feels valued and respected, regardless of their background.
Right. It's about creating a space where everyone can thrive, where everyone can feel like they truly belong.
So let's distill some key takeaways from our deep dive today. First, we need to really remember that a sense of belonging in school is not just some fluffy, nice-to-have thing. It's a fundamental psychological need that directly affects how well students do in school and how they feel about themselves. Second, when we talk about belonging in schools, we can't ignore race and ethnicity. Things like the size of a student's racial or ethnic group, their perceived representation in key subjects like STEM, and the differences between the overall school diversity and the diversity within their actual classes all play a huge role in shaping a student's sense of belonging. And finally, we need to shift our thinking about diversity and see it as this fluid, dynamic thing. It's not static, it's constantly changing, and those changes have real impacts on students.
Couldn't have put it better myself.
Now, as we wrap up, we always like to leave you with a final thought, something to ponder. So, taking everything we've discussed today about this fundamental human need to belong and the powerful ways in which race and ethnicity shape that experience in schools through things like the size of your group, the representation you see in subjects like math, the differences between the school as a whole and what your individual classrooms look like, how might all of this, these subtle but important aspects of the learning environment, be shaping not just a student's sense of belonging in the moment, but also their sense of self, their beliefs about their own abilities, and their entire academic journey? And what does this tell us about how we need to think about creating schools that are truly inclusive and equitable for every single student who walks through those doors? Think about it.
Until next time.
Yeah.